Yesterday I was definitely followed. I was out getting medical supplies, and I caught something out of the corner of my eye, and it was someone definitely looking at me. They turned their attention away when they saw me, but I'm certain that I saw him again later and again as I was walking home. I doubled back, turned a few corners, hopefully I lost him. I didn't see anyone when I came in the back way. But who knows? This is getting closer. I don't know what's important about this, but it is my task now to get these recorded so that you can hear them. Chapter 2: Squids and Snakes, a 2-for-1. The Baltic Star was a Type M subsidised liner of 600 tons. It's capable of jump 3 and clearly had a long service life. No weaponry, not suitable for battle. Has a small launch ship attached which can be used to fly down to the surface of planets or to ferry crew members as required. As the rest of the group went shopping at the starport, Slarty had breakfast with Greyhill Bast and invited him to join us on the mission, working as a ship's barman and personal steward. Once on the Baltic Star, they got shown around by Captain Richard Davis, ship's pilot, astrogator and captain in title only. The ship itself has only had minor modifications for its mission. The furniture has been rearranged in the social area to make space for scientific briefings, and there were some pretty generic scientific posters tacked up along the corridors. Richard Davis called the entire crew into the social area to give the mission briefing. Present were pilot and astrogator Richard Davis, Chief Engineer Rachel Axis, Second Engineer Kron Sarama, Medical Officer Gerg Sutter, Biological Scientist Rick Verlo, Geological Scientist Sammy Kress, Steward Greyhill Bast, as Agner Arnson, Slarty Dent, Kara Lasker, Stefan Miller, Francis Barr and Sarai Kansari. 13 crew in all. The mission was to travel the world to world following a specific route, visiting worlds where the geology, flora and fauna hasn't been researched. Davis was to announce their destination planet, then the team would survey the surface for points of interest, but not investigate themselves. Instead, they file a report for a follow-up team and move on to the next planet, making sure to keep an eye out for any ancient technology or people. So with that and the news that Stateroom 7 on the ship may well be haunted, the ship jumped to Two-phur, the first planet on the mission's route. Two-phur has a rocky, thin atmosphere with an entire planetary population in the tens of millions. All weapons are prohibited on the surface. There's a starport in orbit and downports on the planet below. After some discussion, it was decided that Richard Davis would speak to the local leader as de facto captain of the Baltic Star. It was agreed that the crew were allowed personal protection, such as handguns and blades on the surface, but not if they go to towns. Verlo, Kress and Sutter joined the crew down on the surface after the scan showed barren land, and the only sparse vegetation was down by the edges of a nearby lake. Soraya landed the party safely before they all headed down to the lake. After scanning the lake and surrounding areas, Sammy Kress ascertained that the lake was in fact a very deep sinkhole filled with fresh water. Suggesting that a swim may be useful, Sammy led the crew back to the launch and up to the Baltic Star, where the engineering team spent a few days assembling breathing gear, a raft on a telescopic rod, and waterproof cameras and other useful equipment. Suitably kitted out, the crew returned to the surface with Sammy, Stefan, Slarty, Fu and Soraya diving into the sinkhole. It wasn't long before Sammy and Fu noticed a fast-moving shape in the water, and all but Slarty clambered back onto the raft, as Slarty instead dived deeper. Pushing ahead underwater with night vision binoculars on, Soraya was able to make out the creature. A big bag of tentacles, 2 meters long, that moved just like a squid, and very quickly. Stefan and Soraya swam down to Slarty, and the two of them fired and injured the squid before it attacked Slarty, causing him to stab it to death. But even before the tentacles grew limp, on the raft, Sammy spotted many more closing in. At speed, Stefan and Soraya reached the raft as Agnar's shotgun rang out. Unable to pull himself onto the raft, Slarty found himself surrounded by tentacles as the raft punctured, and the crew desperately pulled it towards the shore. Eventually, Slarty was able to clamber onto the raft, dragging dead squid behind him as the squids swarmed. A fierce and desperate fight ensued as the raft sank into the water, but eventually the crew were able to clamber back onto the shore with 2 dead samples and many more floating in the pool. Rick Verlo wanted to return at night to check out an area full with thorny bushes. So with the sky dark above, Sarai landed the transport shuttle again and the crew headed out to the thorns. Seeing points of light throughout the bushes, Rick shone on his torch, gasping, as every point was shown to be the eyes of a snake. Agnar managed to grab one to capture it, as Kara saw dozens of holes at the base of the bushes that the snakes were slithering in and out of. Sarai impaled the captured snake for a dead sample, as Rick managed to grab one live, and Agnar took thorn samples. Realizing that the snakes were drawn to the sap of the trunk, Slartian Fu gathered the sap. Sweet and syrupy, Fu cut his arm and rubbed the sap into the stinging wound. The blood went milky, then thickened and solidified a little, including within the vein. Taking the dead snake, Sarai blooded it a little more and left it 5 meters from the water's edge. The crew took up hiding places and waited. For half an hour, nothing, but then a squid climbed out of the water, moved towards the snake and dropped onto it, feeding, before moving towards Stefan as another climbed out of the water and headed towards Kara. With the squids making ground quickly, the crew managed to only injure them before they jumped at Kara and Stefan. Agnar managed a last-minute shot to kill one, as Kara, her armour pierced by the other, beat it to death with her fists. Blindsided by a third, Fu was able to chop into it with his cutlass before Agnar put it out of its misery. With that, the crew were more than ready to leave this planet behind, with plenty of samples, data and reports to make. The Baltic Star pulled out of orbit and jumped to the planet of Bright Sea. Hello? Hello?